Hey, good morning and welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, Earl Kitchings. Joining me is Madame Ronline Cannady this morning. Always glad to have her with you. Good morning, Ronline.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we are here on the Kitchings Table on Awesome Radio, WBIS, LP 106.9 FM. Always glad to be with you. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Roku, or GPAC 23, whichever is your platform you prefer. And we are glad to be with you every Tuesday morning here on Awesome Radio. And it's a great morning. Ronline, how you doing this morning?
I am doing great. Thank you. So much going on in this world today, isn't it? Starting the new year off with a bang and a punch.
Man, it's we continue to be treading on this historical path of things happening uh, all over the country, even throughout the world. And it just seems that the day by day things that happen just it's almost like nothing else that can surprise you, and then as soon as you say that, boom, something surprises you and like, wow, I didn't see that
Yes.
coming. So
And sadly, that is true.
and the occurrence of day-to-day events, current events and things of that nature, just continue to keep us shaking our head, but keeping us in prayer that things will get better. And sometimes it takes a little longer than we want. And patience is one of the virtues that is very, very, very challenging to have, but it is what it is. So, once again, good morning to everyone to our show. And our topic of our show today is: Are you woke? Are you woke? And I'm bringing this topic to everyone today, Ron Lee, simply because after hearing a news story on public radio, it just totally caused me to think about the long-term effects of what happens when a governor decides to tell state colleges and universities they can't teach certain subject matter. And when we talk about colleges and universities, they have always been the citadels for knowledge, wisdom, pushing the envelope forward, pushing it forward at great speeds and great lengths. Uh, a lot of research comes out to help in the medical field and other areas that make life uh, as we know it to become better. But when you want to start minimizing or telling or uh, placing restrictions on what colleges and universities can teach, just because you're the governor and your ideology is not what you think it should, you want to push your ideology on colleges and universities, it makes it difficult. And the first thing that has come out of this, that some proponents who are against this thought process is, freedom of speech always comes out as the first thing people talk about. The First Amendment, freedom of speech. So that's what the college and university communities and the faculties and professors are coming from uh, as we deal with this. So, are you woke? Today, we're talking about the fact that Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, is now issuing out, he's trying to make it difficult for public colleges and universities to teach certain topics as it relates to, and we're going to, we're going to continue to fight this battle for a long time, but race relations. And so if you are caught doing this, you risk perhaps losing your job and losing funding for the colleges. So that's what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, yes, this is an interesting topic. one that goes very deeply. I want to take this moment to give a shout out to Kwame Alexander. He is an author who came up with a children's book, as incidentally is going to be exhibited here today at the public library here in Jacksonville, Florida, Earl. Um, Teaching children about slavery and why that part of history is not to be forgotten. What he was trying to deliver from what his daughter had came home crying one day, wanting to know what was going on back in the days of her ancestors or their ancestors, how they were treated in this country, the same country that she's growing up in. And the teacher, he had a conference with her. She did not know how to go about teaching on the subject because, of course, they did not have appropriate teaching structure in order to present this to the children. So the way she presented it was like all of these beatings and things that took place. And these are the things that Ron DeSantis is trying to stamp out to keep people from hating the very America that they are growing up in. However, you cannot denounce the history that brought African Americans through. So, and there's no way to sugarcoat what happened through all of the wars. I mean, we could talk about every single war, the Civil War. We could talk about World War One, World War Two, how that has impacted the country. But no one wants to talk about slavery, in which people are still today are fighting for their rights as an American citizen and not being part of property. And that was one of the things that he brought out in his book. So I do intend to get that book myself so that as I'm coming across the younger generation, I'll be able to have some kind of reference tool to be able to refer them to so that they can get a better understanding of what their ancestors has gone through and what we're still fighting about to this day, dealing with discrimination.
Well, it sounds like a very good book, and it's something that many parents should have in their children's library so that they can educate and provide knowledge about, what really is what. So I want to talk a little bit about the definitions of the two terms woke and CRT. You know, I guess America is probably one of the best countries for using acronyms to describe things. You know, you got acronyms all over the place. So CRT, you say CRT in the medical field, it means something totally different. It's got a totally different, but CRT, critical race theory. So um, in providing just a little backdrop to this, the term has been used by some conservatives, and they say that is as an insult against progressive values. However, what I found out was the term was originally coined by progressive Black Americans and was used in racial justice movements in the early to mid 1900s. So woke is not something new; it's been around. Including in its use is a historical recording of the protest song "Scottsboro Boys" by Belly. In that recording, it was used as a term about staying aware, and that's what we're talking about: staying aware of the potential for racist violence as a Black person in America. We continue to see it time and time again. Uh, we've seen it in communities throughout the country. So, to be woke politically in the Black community, as you indicated from Mr. Alexander's book, means that someone is informed. So, listen to this now, Ronline. If you're woke, it means that someone is informed, educated, and conscious of social injustice and racial equality. That's the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition: informed, educated, and conscious. If you are those three things, then you really are in tune and know what's going on. So when you hear governors or people who stand with governors or political people speak out against the woke, you're fighting to minimize woke. So you want people not to be educated, conscious, and informed.
Mhm.
However, you want other things to be taught, but not some things. And when I heard this about him wanting to put this type of restriction at the college and university level, the first thing came to mind. Mind you, that in the state of Florida, where Ronline and I are, there's only one black public college. Only one. Florida has only one public state college. Other states have a few more, but in Florida we only have one. So it came to me, Ronnie, and said, "So you don't want teachers to teach Black history at a Black college? Is that what you're wanting to minimize, Mr. Governor? I mean, is that, because as you stated, the facts are what they are, and when people want to play around with something like this, you're really saying you don't want the truth to be told. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You don't want the truth and the facts of what happened in history, because you can't go back and change anything that happened in history. I can't go back and change what happened from the standpoint of slavery and uh, people of color, Black people being brought to this country. I can't change what happened during the times of the Civil War. I can't change what happened during the times of World War I and World War II, and I can't change what happened yesterday. So when you want to minimize the teaching of a certain subject, especially at the highest level of educational value that we have, which is our colleges and universities, you're saying you don't want professors to teach facts and truth because you feel that it will go against your political ideals and political values. That hit me. That's where it hit me. I'm not sure if you even read up a little bit about what he is actually trying to do. That radio uh, story just hit me because I'm like, beyond Florida A&M University being the only Black state university in the state of Florida, you got 9 other major uh, predominantly white institutions, and you don't want people to teach facts and truth because these things happen. They did happen, and you can't deny history. I mean, it's like, dude, so you want to deny everything about history? I mean, or just the part that relates to Black people? That part don't matter. Don't worry about that part. That part don't matter. And that's kind of the way it kind of hit me, Ronline.
Okay. So for me, when reading and hearing all of the different things that has gone, not just with Ron DeSantis, but I think Texas was the first place where it really got my attention, dealing with the Black Wall Street and all of the other things as far as the Black Lives Matter movement. One of my friends, Jerry Leitner, had talked about this years ago. He stated, and let me get it right, Jerry Leitner Jr.
Okay.
So he stated long ago about we need to have our own, as African Americans, we need to have our own identity. Meaning, he says, just as simply as the question that we were asking as children: where did we come from? You
Mm-hmm.
know, how is it that we came into this world to exist? Very innocent question. And of course, we come from our parents, right? Through conception. But when we delve into that, then we learn that we came from a past.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And so now, where did we come from? So what continent did we actually derive from? What's in our DNA? And when I think about what's in our DNA, that goes back to history.
Correct.
So we want to know, okay, well, we have this as part of our DNA, we have that as part of our DNA that makes us who we are. But now we have the environmental things that has shaped us along the way. So with that said, and then it comes to when we become adults, now we are expected to be productive, law abiding citizens
Right.
as adults. We are expected to work, we are expected to participate in commerce. So now we are spending our money in order to make ends meet, if you will. And these are the things that we need to be discussing at our kitchen table. So, when we're talking about where we've come from and, of course, where we are going, what our future is going to look like. And most likely, each of us are going to have start another generation of our own. So, we need to be impacting them, our new generations and generations to come, of how to be productive citizens. And how do you do that? When you've come through broken times, when you're not being taught correctly, or when you're not given the understanding, or when the truth is being held from you, during our school system. And it goes back to the impact of what is being taught at home. So do you want your children to be half educated, or do you want them to have all of the information? And we want our children to have all of the information so you can teach them in the right way of how to be productive. Not only that, that goes back to the affirmative action that we had started looking at as well, how we are expected to participate in commerce, which means
Mm-hmm.
that we're spending our money for goods and services, but
Mm-hmm.
yet our wages aren't the same.
Mm-hmm.
We can have the same job. In most cases, I am one of the people who have taught so many others that come through by my desk to learn from me, and yet they are getting paid more than me, and we're doing the same job. So my wages will never equal up to my counterparts' wages, which means that my buying power is significantly less. So that means that I am forced to live in areas that I don't want to live, that I wouldn't have picked out for myself. But because my income dictates where I have to live, my income dictates of what kind of food I can purchase for my family and for myself. My income dictates whether or not I get ahead. This is the kind of thing that we need to get woke to,
Mm-hmm.
awakened to, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can start the process not only of healing, but learning how to get ahead, so
Right.
that we can self sustain ourselves and our generations to come, to be able to leave something behind. So that touches me on so many levels, as you can see. That's a stair step in itself of what I just talked about.
Well, you're so correct in bringing out those points to extend the conversation about the governor of Florida's thoughts and ideas. What my research also cited was that the governor has implemented policies in schools for the point of limiting discussion and curriculum on race, gender, and sexual orientation with the law he put into had enacted the Parents' Rights in Education, and now the Stop the Woke Act, and he's arguing that these laws give parents more say in what their kids learn in school, what the kids learn in school from the high school, middle school, elementary school levels, and in a time where it's interesting because anything that you may feel is not totally 100% valid in what you've read or heard, this is why we have what we call the most critical teaching tool is a book, because something is written and that validates a lot of things. Documentation validates a lot of things. So the book in today's society is known as the internet. When we were growing up, our internet was called encyclopedias.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the name Wikipedia comes from, the pedia part, because it's dealing with the encyclopedia and the information. So we didn't have the technology. We had books, and what was written in books, for the most part, was factual information. And when you have a governor who's making this appeal, and when governors have their meetings, and you have governors from other states who will interact with this guy and convince them that they need to put this in play in their state, and they take it back to their state and want to make this cycle happen in their states, it puts everybody at risk, because you can't learn about a part unless you learn about the whole. You can't talk about American history in a vacuum, because it does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in a wide open space. And even in today's time, forget what happened during the Civil War. Let's throw that part out. If we just talk about what has happened over the last 20 years, Mr. DeSantis, are you denying that these things happen? Are you denying that you got elected? That's part of history. Are you denying that you got elected? So you convoluting all these things for the sake of trying to minimize people based on their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, getting knowledge and information about what's really going on, because it affects the value and the strength of what you want done politically, because you want to manipulate, as we say, as has been said, you want to manipulate the system. And Ronline, it was sung then in the early 70s, and 50 years later almost, the words that the OJ sang in their song, For the Love of Money, it continues to be a very valid part of the American landscape, because his end game is that he wants to become the president.
Yes. Now imagine that if he became the president, which brings me to my next thing that we need to be discussing at the kitchen's table is this.
Bring it.
Who are you electing for your officials? Okay. I was trying to understand. It was two governors. I was wondering how they were able to get back into office, and that is the governor for Florida and the governor for Georgia, because the people of Florida and Georgia have many things to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So when these two got back in, I understood as of last night and just really pondering um, our Florida governor of who were his supporters. Okay. So when I think about who's becoming the majority of people now, um, we know that we had a lot of movement, a lot of migration here to Florida. So those people are now, registered voters, and they're getting out there to vote. Now, in our households today, we need to be grooming our new generations to what politics is, and not to shy away from politics, but to understand why we need to be running to politics, why we need to be grooming our young people to become politicians so that they can be in the know about the laws that governs their lives, as well as start running for offices so that if they truly want change, that they can affect the change, that they can be the change. Why it's important to become a registered voter and actually get out there and vote. Also, to understand what you're voting for and how it affects you in the long run. So those are the things that has become, as you say, awakened in me. Has been, I want to go back as early as 2003 when John Kerry was running for president. And I was a journalist then for a magazine. And at that time, doing the research or whatever, and this is when Florida became the jokes of the country for how we go to the polls, vote, but yet can't vote correctly. This is when we had runaway votes. Remember that
Mm-hmm.
period of time? The very embarrassing part that has brought us through. That too was a part of history that will not be forgotten. And so we need to build on who we are today, where we are going, what our future is going to look like, and what our future has looked like years past. As you say, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, or what that actually looked like. So many people lost their lives over nonsense. So, and we have these same people that were um, voicing their opinions then, and they are voicing their opinions now, but yet they're in a law making situation, wherein laws are being carried out, passed and carried out, to wherein it is affecting us today. It is affecting our children of the future.
Well, we must inform and educate our children for the task in front of them. Politics is a very, I'm not going to say it's not interesting, but it requires some very unique skill sets to be a politician. Most politicians have backgrounds in law because, of course, that's what governance is, law.
Mhm, mhm,
And when you know the law, or and you know how to write laws, and that's where everything will eventually end up, because no matter what happens, you commit a crime, the end game to that is, well, you got to go to court, and in court they're going to cite the law to you, what you did wrong, what you did right. So the fact that we need to help our children not only know what's going on from a legal standpoint and from a law standpoint, but to teach them the importance of being in the realm of politics. And as people change the laws to affect to affect those who are Black and other racial minorities, when you want to affect the laws that make economic and social conditions more difficult for people who are with who have the least, you find that things will change or can change or do change pretty rapidly. So these are the things that we have to be mindful of. And in addition to this thing of being woke, the other part to this is the critical race theory. So we're going to go a little bit into that, but let me just tell everyone that this is the Kitchings Table on Awesome Radio, WBIS LP 106.9. Join us every Tuesday morning here for the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, Earl Kitchings. Joining me today is Ronline Cannady. If you ever want to think of her as not a co-host, I look at her as a wingman. That's a wing woman. You know, she definitely helps me and helps to bring another point of view and insight. So this is who we are here at the Kitchings Table, wanting to bring you information, things that you may know, things you may not know, everything. You know, this is probably one of the few times, Ronline, where what we're talking about today really butts up against politics, because the politics can spin you out of control with trying to understand it or what it's talking about. So we're going to go back to our uh, topic of the day. Are you woke? And it's dealing with the fact that you have a governor in the state of Florida who wants to make sure that colleges and universities don't teach certain courses, don't put out facts and truth about some things that have happened. And because of that, you find that some colleges may lose funding and some professors possibly could lose their jobs. So now, you know, you butt the woke part with the critical race theory of the CRT, and just a little bit of the definition. The CRT, intellectual and social movement, loosely organized framework of legal analysts based on the premise that race is not a natural, biologically grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups. Critical race theories hold that racism is inherent in the law and legal institutions as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequities between whites and non-whites. And for the most part, up until recently, that has basically been very cut and dry, whites and blacks. But now that you have Hispanics definitely becoming a very strong part of our population, they are wanting to have say, and they are making their presence known. Whether or not they understand the full aspects of the political game that is played here in the United States, that's left for them to find out. They got to learn that lesson right now. They are rapidly becoming a political source of voting, so they will be heard. So when you talk about a country that is built on diversity, it started out with diversity. It has a statue that welcomes diversity. The Statue of Liberty welcomes diversity. You know, if you ever read the uh, reading on the Statue of Liberty's base, send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. That's diverse. It doesn't say a particular one. So here we are in this country, this melting pot, as they've always called it, called America, and it's been stirred up for over the last 100 plus years. Definitely been stirred up since the turn of 1800s to the 1900s. It's really got stirred up then. It might not have been as stirred up before then during the Civil War days and the Western days, but it's definitely been stirred up since 1900, and it's going to continue to be stirred up as you if you're checking out your news, that peoples from South America are flooding the border at in Texas and the states in the southern border of the United States. They're just coming in waves. So they are escaping bad situation, hoping to come here for a better situation. But when we talk about this CRT, this critical race theory, and how it affects the information part, the factual part, the truth part, you can't, again, you can't teach a part without teaching the whole. And race has been a part of this country. It will continue to be a part of this country. It will continue to have its place to make things uh, challenging. But as I start out today's show speaking about a governor who wants to minimize what is being taught, it just really brought to my attention, well, he's one, but what if 10 governors decided to do this out of the 50 states? What if 10 governors decided to do this? And it goes beyond just this, but they make this happen. Then they start working on some other parts. And there are some people who want to turn the clock backwards as it relates to race relations in this country. They want things to be like maybe it was 100+ years ago. Well, that genie's not getting back in the bottle, not without a fight anyway. And each day that we have to deal with these type of scenarios where people of color have to basically fight for their existence, fight for their human rights, fight for decency, fight for respect. It wears, some people want to do this just to wear you down. Well, you got to have some fortitude and some tenacity so you don't get worn down. You got to, you as it's been said, you got to fight the good fight. And as former Congressman John Lewis said, you got to always be seeking some good trouble, because without seeking that good trouble and mixing it up, things can turn back to a time that, for those who don't know what those times were like, you don't want to experience those times. And because this is just another way of playing this game, social game, this political game, you have the mindsets of governors like a Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott out in Texas. And then you have a former president who stirred up the pot for those people who believed in this belief of wanting having things in this vacuum. He stirs it up real good, although he doesn't seem to really be knowledgeable of a lot of things. But he just, it's like when we were growing up as kids, somebody always trying to start something, always trying to start something. Everything is fine. You're playing a game and all of a sudden this person comes and they come and mess up the whole game because they're trying to start something. But we have to be more diligent in our efforts. And Ronline, when you spoke about parents, and the one thing that parents, especially young parents of this day, of this generation, must understand is this: the most critical thing that they can teach their children is to educate their minds. Because without the education part, you can easily be taken advantage of. You can be manipulated very easily. And when you don't know because you can't read, when you don't know because you can't write, when those two things are not a part of your base, then you're dependent on someone telling you things. You get manipulated pretty fast. And when that manipulation process is over and you don't have anything, or you've been having had things taken away from you, who's going to help you? So we must continue to understand what's going on and pay attention and stay informed and stay educated, because a lot of people have lost their lives over the years just so that we can have opportunity. And when opportunity is denied, you fight harder for that opportunity. And this is where we are right now in 2023 going forward. As you've seen with the politics that have happened over the last 7 years, you've never seen. Well, not everybody can say that because some people are so young they can't go back but so far. But for you and I, Ronline, not in the last 30 years have we seen any type of political disarray as much as we've seen it over the last 7 years, based on how politics has gone on from the top, which meaning the president, all the way to the lowest level of government, which is local municipalities, to see all the things that have occurred, all the mindsets, all the things that have happened. I mean, when you can be elected to office and then have it brought out that you lied about everything you said you did. I lied about where I went to school. I lied about my parents. I lied, and you don't have any guilt about it. I'm going to hold my office. I don't care. I got elected, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But that, when you kind of see what's been going over the last 7 years, this kind of, persuades people not to want to go into politics. Would you agree?
That is true. But this is why we also have to run to it. I admire our former president, Barack Obama, for the steps that he took to not allow his dream to die, when he stepped into going door to door for advocating for people in Chicago, all of the things that he saw that were wrong. And then when he became the state senator of Illinois, and then he became the U.S. senator, and then from there, the president of the United States, to try to right some of these wrongs that has been taking place over the years, over centuries actually. um, that's where we need to be grooming more and more of our newer generations of taking a stand, because we've seen what happened when we just stand idly by and allow things to keep happening. More and more laws are going to be passed. I remember there was a situation that took place, I believe it was in Alabama, one of these older laws, that that were still on the books, and a person was prosecuted based on those older laws, and those laws were ancient laws. I don't remember what the incident was, but it's things like that, wherein it took away the person's civil liberties of what we are doing today, to wherein, may as well say it put them in some type of bondage, if you will. And from there, they were sentenced to prison, I believe. However, it took a couple of people to stand up to the plate to say, look, we are no longer doing this. When was this law created? And I forgot what century that law was created, but they were able to get that law overturned by creating a new law to abolish that law. So these are things that we're coming through the ranks of. They cannot be ignored. And we need to be teaching our children. We need to be teaching our grandchildren, anybody's children for that matter, Like you said, back in the day, we had encyclopedias. Many people today do not know what an encyclopedia even look like. I remember when someone walked into my home one day and saw my encyclopedias from 1970, wanted to know, like, is that information still valid today? Yes, it is, because it's a part of history. So we need to go back and start having libraries in our homes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Mm.
And I liked what our former first lady said. Her mother started taking her to the library before she was able to read. She learned how to read and write with her mother at the library. And at the library you have so many things to choose from. um, Different genres and things like that to be able to teach your children. I was reading the article that's pertaining to the woke part by dealing with Ron DeSantis, wherein it's not only affecting just one part of our history, but I'm looking at it wherein it's affecting our language arts, it's affecting our mathematics system. All of that has brought us to where we are today, or what we've learned about. We have to fight for ourselves. No one is going to fight for us, and that's the point I want to make today. If we aren't fighting for us to be able to strive into this country, no one else is going to be able to do it. If we don't have people that's advocating for us, then and we're not supporting them as well. We have people out there that's on that battleground that is fighting for us, but are we supporting them? And they need our support. And the support, as they say, charity starts at home. Your charity need for your support needs to be starting at home. What are you teaching yourself? What are you doing to be productive? What are you doing in order to make a change?
Well, I do think that the fact of reestablishing libraries in our homes is important. Again, but Ron Lee, nobody makes encyclopedias anymore.
That is correct, but there
So,
are plenty of books out there, and let's take a page from Kwame Alexander. He didn't find what he was looking for, but he did what he needed to do the research in order to create a book. So we all have something that we can author in ourselves. And if you don't want to be an author, or you don't know how to be an author, there are plenty of writers around you. So um, ask somebody to write a book for you. Tell them what you want in it or whatever. Get started on that project. The 1619 project that was introduced to us. I think this is how the CRT got started in the beginning of making us aware and to appreciate where we come from. Don't denounce it, but learn how to appreciate it and embrace it and learn from it so that we can move forward. And that's my message to us today.
well, as we talk about having books, and as you were saying that, I was thinking about just the overall concept of the set of a set of encyclopedias. That concept of that set of books having that much knowledge, facts, information in them, because those books provided facts or
Yeah.
information about other things. And in this day and time, we don't have a collection of books that provide that much content. So we have to have many, many books to provide that kind of content. But it's unfortunate that a collection of books like that no longer exist. Imagine what a 2022 version of encyclopedias would be if they were still being published. Imagine how big all those books would be. The A book, the B book. Some of these books had to be divided in half in order to do, you know, the whole amount, all the information under the letter B, C, D, E. Imagine how large those books would be in today's time had they still been in publishing. And if you didn't have any other books in your house,
Hmm.
when we were growing up, if you didn't have any other books in your house, that one set of books was so critical to not only just having a book to read to give you all this information, but when you had uh, class assignments, when you had homework assignments, especially that required you to go look up information so that you could write about it in your own words, those books were so critical to our learning. But
Yes.
now, because we have computers and everything is online, well, if I don't have a laptop in my house, I don't have access to knowledge and wisdom via a book. If I don't have a PC in my house, then I can't get online to look up information. The closest thing I have in order to look up information is my telephone.
Hmm.
That's where you tend to go look up information, but holding that phone and looking everything up on that phone is not the same as a laptop or a PC. You will get the same information, but being able to do your work. But that's one of the things that when I think about what you were talking about and having the tools, because that books are just tools. They're just resources and tools to help and to help provide you with, again, knowledge so that you can attain wisdom. So if we're going to, you know, do something, and I guess again, if the encyclopedia was created on disk for a laptop or a computer, again, that gives you information. And I know all this information is Wikipedia. It is out there. You can just find it as you need it. So, but again, you have to have the tools. If you don't have the tools in your house, it's just like when we were coming up. If your family didn't have a set of encyclopedias, where would you go to get the information, the resources to do your assignment? You had to go to the library. If you didn't live across the street from a friend who had a set of encyclopedias at their house, you had to go to the library to do your assignments. But if you don't have a laptop in this day and time, how can your child do their assignments because they don't have access? So, there are a lot of things that need to be done, and I think as we move forward, some things will move forward to getting done. I want to just bring to us this final thing as we start winding down and getting ready to wrap up today. Um, so we're talking about woke from the standpoint that the governor of Florida is now. It was okay when it wasn't okay, but you started out putting this law into place for public elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. But now, when you push this law to the college and university levels, that takes on a whole different demeanor. So, um, the law, uh, known as the individual freedom, but on the books, and when you're writing laws, they have numbers and letters. So HB7, formerly called the Individual Freedom Measure, bans educators from teaching certain topics related to race and is designed in part to prevent teachers from making students feel guilty or shame about their race because of historical events. That's has now been pushed forward to the college and university level. And in his comments, the governor said, "We believe in education, not indoctrination. We believe an important component of freedom in the state of Florida is the freedom from having oppressive ideologies opposed upon you without your consent." History is what it is, man. Nobody's impressing anything. History is what it is. And if someone's sharing history, they're just telling you the facts of what actually happened. So again, I question, well, are you wanting to question the fact that you got elected? Is that questionable? Oh, that's not question. It just deals with, as I stated, related to race. And when it deals with uh, topics related to race about Black people and the atrocities they suffer, because anytime there's something said against uh, the Jewish people, that gets a lot of attention, a lot of attention. You know, when that's brought out and said in public, everything stops almost and gives attention to that. Why are they the only ones who can have their plight recognized and no one else's? What about other races or other cultures? You know, forget the Black situation. Let's talk about Native Americans. Let's talk about what they've had to deal with, and how you've minimized them. However, Ronline, I ran into something recently, and it talked about how many colleges and universities there are for Native Americans that we don't even know about,
Mm.
simply because Native Americans, the original Americans, they live on reservations, and they are
Time.
okay. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Till the next time, Ronline, wishing everybody a great week. Do something special for somebody. Till next week on the Kitchens Table, we'll say so long.